What is up, y'all? Riley here, and welcome to an exciting new episode of Hot Singles. Welcome to another episode of Hot Singles, the show where I talk about all of the hottest new single issues that come out every week. I tell you my thoughts on some of the biggest new issues so you can know whether or not you should be checking them out. Now, so we've got a few cool things this week, but as always, I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon subscribers. Thank you so much, you guys, for helping me to make this channel better, and as well, shout out to the Omnibus Collectors Network, the channel I do awesome work with awesome YouTubers every single week. So if you enjoy what I do here, then definitely check them out. And as well, if this is your first time checking out my channel, I hope you enjoy what you see and will consider hitting that subscribe button. Alright, so as always, we start with DC this week. I had a few issues from DC that I read, but the only big one, and really the best issue that came out from DC, in my opinion, this week, was the Dark Knight's Death Metal Trinity War one-shot. So this month is kind of an off month for Death Metal. There's not an issue of the actual event, but instead we get a bunch of one-shots and a couple of issues of Justice League that tie into Death Metal. This one-shot, though, essentially is the next part of Death Metal. It follows up directly after issue 3, and it takes place between that and issue 4, and I would say that it's pretty necessary reading if you are reading the series. So while not all tie-ins and whatnot are absolutely necessary, my rule of thumb is always, when reading events, definitely, if you're going to check anything out, definitely read the issues that are written by the main writer of that event. So in this case, it would be Scott Snyder, and this is the one-shot, or one of the one-shots, one of the extra issues that is written by Snyder. The issue itself kind of sees all of the heroes who were brought together at the end of the third issue of Death Metal as they move forward towards trying to infiltrate the Castle Bat and kind of take on the Batman Who Laughs. And so with that, they find that they have to face off against the 3 different crises. So Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman each have to deal with kind of a crisis that has been made into its own world, basically. So Batman dealing with the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Superman dealing with the Final Crisis, and Wonder Woman dealing with the Infinite Crisis. And it's just a lot of action, a lot of really awesome action sequences throughout this issue. We got some good character moments, and a lot of really great artwork by Francis Manapul. I'm going to say that this is probably my favorite single issue of Death Metal so far. I mentioned when talking about the third issue that this event is definitely getting better with each passing issue, and I think that here it's really hitting its stride. So I'm hoping that as we head into the latter half of Death Metal, starting next month and stuff, that it really does take off and become something great, because I know that given it's supposed to be Scott Snyder's kind of big last hurrah and the encore to everything he's been doing at DC, I'm really hoping that he sticks the landing on this. So fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. From the Image Comics this week, I had one issue that I read, and that was Ice Cream Man Quarantine Comics Special. This is a special single issue one-shot, mostly written by and drawn by the main team on Ice Cream Man. And it's a bunch of it's an anthology, basically. It's a bunch of short stories, different little horror stories, as is typical with issues of Ice Cream Man, but these were written and drawn during the early days of the quarantine. So that's why it's called the Quarantine Comics Special. Apparently these were all available on online to read, but they've reproduced this as a single issue. So some people might have already read this stuff. It's all new to me because I had no idea that they existed anywhere online. At the back of the issue, there's also a few guest stories written by people like Declan Shalvey and Al Ewing, so it kind of rounds it out to be a nice little package. If you're a fan of Ice Cream Man like I am, it's definitely something that you'll want to check out, something you'll want to pick up. It is a good little horror anthology. It's not the best of the Ice Cream Man stories, but there are a couple of really interesting things that pop up in there. And then from Dark Horse this week, I had one issue as well, and that was issue 1 of Bill and Ted Are Doomed from Evan Dorkin. Now, I've never read any of the older Evan Dorkin Bill and Ted comics, but I decided I really wanted to read this one because I am a fan of the Bill and Ted movies. I grew up watching them when I was younger. I watched them many times. And I was very excited to see the new movie come out this summer, and my wife and I actually went out to a drive-in theater so we could go check it out, and I had a good time with it. This comic, I'll say that while I haven't read any of the older Dorkin stuff, I did not feel like I needed to have read that while reading this. This feels like it is a nice little stopgap between Bogus Journey and the new Bill and Ted movie. It takes place a few years after that film, and we get to see the daughters of Bill and Ted, Billy and Thea, appear in this as much younger versions of themselves. So it definitely takes place about a decade before the events of the new movie. And it does star a lot of the other characters that we're familiar with from the Bill and Ted movies, like the robot Bill and Ted, Station, and Death. And of course, the princesses are in there as well. So we get all the characters kind of mixed in here. And if you've seen the new movie, then you know that a lot of those characters are not really present. So this miniseries seems like it's going to show us what happened between the two movies to have all these characters kind of move on, and you know, what happens with Death and stuff like that. So it was a good first issue. I really enjoy the way that Dorkin writes these characters, and I'm a big fan of Evan Dorkin. I've loved a lot of his work, so I figured that I would enjoy this. But I think he has a really good voice for these characters. The way he writes Bill and Ted's voices comes off pretty much exactly how they do in the movies, so that is a big A+ for me, and it definitely makes me want to go check out those older Evan Dorkin Bill and Ted comics. If you're a fan of the Bill and Ted movies and you've never read any of the comics, I'm going to say definitely check this out, because you do not need any other context to enjoy this, and it's definitely something that myself, as a fan of the movies, like I said, I really enjoyed this first issue, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of this series plays out. And finally, from Marvel, we had a couple big things. A couple of issue ones came up, but also there was the finale to, not really the finale, but the aftermath and the fallout issues of Empyre. I've been ragging on Empyre ever since I started doing these hot singles shows, and I've been talking about how I really just haven't enjoyed it. And the last issue came out recently, and I mentioned that it really didn't do anything for me. But these fallout issues, there's the Empyre Aftermath Avengers and Empyre Fallout Fantastic Four. These were both actually pretty good issues, so I wanted to mention that just to kind of say there is some positive here with this event. Some of the tie-ins were good too. I was really not favorable on the event itself, but the Aftermath issue did a lot more than I thought it would. It gave a lot of good context to follow up on the story itself and kind of lead towards the possibility of what's going to come later. And the Fantastic Four issue kind of did the same thing, and it was interesting because it hit on a character that we don't see enough of, in my opinion, in showing us the Unseen, this new version of Nick Fury that we saw spinning out of the original Sin storyline. So if you, like me, have been really curious about how they were going to use that version of Nick Fury, how they were going to use the Unseen, and you're kind of disappointed that we haven't seen much of him since original Sin, then definitely check out this issue, as it teases some stuff that might be coming with that character in the near future. Now, nothing has been announced yet, so the little cliffhangers at the end of both the Aftermath and Fallout issues are not really leading towards anything in particular, but if they lead towards something, then I'll be happy, because both of them left pretty interesting little cliffhanger plots there that I'm hoping get followed up soon. Now, as far as a new issue number 1, there was the Rise of Ultraman series that popped up from Kyle Higgins. Kyle Higgins, of course, did some work over at DC, but more recently, he's probably best known for starting up the Power Rangers franchise over at Boom, and this kind of feels like the same type of thing as that Power Rangers series. Kyle Higgins is giving us a new origin story for Ultraman in, I don't want to say it's in the Marvel Universe, but it's published by Marvel Comics. I don't think that it's supposed to be part of the Marvel Universe. I don't believe that this series is going to see him crossing over with other heroes, and especially by the tease that we see at the end about, you know, the future of the series, it seems like it's mostly just focusing on reestablishing a new continuity, a streamlined continuity for Ultraman. I'll say my favorite part of this issue, though, was the backup feature of Ultra Q. That was a really cool little backup that gave kind of a history on some of the stuff and kind of a background on characters that existed long before the events of this miniseries. If you're a fan of kaiju stuff like myself, or if you're a fan of Ultraman, you might want to check this out. The first issue, as far as the main feature goes, didn't really give us that much depth. It didn't really give us that much to think about, but I trust a lot in Kyle Higgins and what he's going to do here. I trust that he has some great ideas and some good things coming up his sleeve. And I think it was a decent first issue to kind of introduce audiences to Ultraman and to these characters, since many audiences probably have never watched the Ultraman shows before. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens as this series goes on and seeing what plans they have for Ultraman and if it's going to expand into a bigger franchise or what, but suffice to say, I'm in on this one. I'm definitely in. And finally, we got the one-shot Web of Venom Wraith issue. Now, this was pretty interesting. Donny Cates, along with some other people, have been writing these Web of Venom stories, and each one of these issues kind of focuses on a different character or a different concept that connects to Cates' ongoing Venom. In this issue, we visit the character of Wraith, which we haven't really seen for a while. Wraith is a Kree that's kind of been morphed into something new. I'm not going to go much into the depth about who the Wraith is, but he's a character that has appeared in a lot of the cosmic stories in the past. And in this issue, we get to see him kind of become connected with Venom's storyline and connected with the planet of the Clintar, which is the alien name of the symbiote, and then connected to Null himself. And at the end of the issue, we see a big tease towards something that is probably going to play a major role in the upcoming King in Black storyline that the Venom series is moving towards. It looks like this issue takes place before the current Venom arc, the Venom Beyond story arc, but it does, like I said, lead towards a really interesting point being brought up there at the end. If you're a fan of Donny Cates' Venom run, this is definitely something that you'll want to check out. I really enjoyed the way he wrote this issue. It gave a lot of background, a lot of information, and I really enjoyed just the way that he narrates from the Wraith's point of view about what's going on in this issue. So again, if you're a fan of Donny Cates' Venom, definitely check out this one shot. It'll be worth your time, and I guarantee it's going to give some stuff to think about as we head into the King in Black in a few months here. So that's all the major stuff from this week. Of course, I read a lot of other stuff as well, but those are the major ones that I wanted to talk about. So thank you so much for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you're new to my channel, like I said before, I hope that you'll consider pressing that subscribe button. I do multiple videos every single week talking about single issues, various comic book topics, and manga videos as well. So if you're a fan of any of that stuff, definitely click that subscribe button and hit the bell so you're notified about all the awesome new content I put out every week. Again, thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you enjoyed the issue. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace out.